Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Silvates podcast. So, I'm really excited to talk to Oliver Smith on the podcast this week. And Oliver is dating 2025 for the vibe. So, we're going to be talking about what dating men in London is really like and how he's navigating that on social media. So, thank you so much for joining me today, Oliver.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And the way I found you was on TikTok, and I think this was very early on. I think it was like number four or number five in the series, and it came up on my For You page.
Yeah.
And you were very transparently chronicling your dating experiences.
hmm
I wanted to sort of get an idea of like what inspired that for you.
Yeah. I mean, firstly, I remember you being one of the first sort of regular supporters of the series, which was very lovely. But I think there's two answers to that question. I think originally I had been approached by one of my mum's friends about selling um basically like not beauty products, what do you call it? Skincare products. And I was like, yeah, I guess I could give it a go, but I thought I don't want to do it on my Instagram or Facebook. So I was like, oh, let me do it on TikTok because no one will know me on there. But then I knew that building an audience or an algorithm, they need you to have like a thing that you have to keep repeating. So I think after 4 years of dating in London with not much success, I sort of not like given up the will, but I just like thought I have nothing left to give. Why don't I document it online? And I'd seen a Australian content creator who was incredibly famous called Maddie do it for a little bit, and I absolutely loved watching hers. And I'm really sad she's not doing it anymore. But that was sort of the main inspiration was to model it after hers because I'd felt as well. I just at least not on my For You page. I was not getting any gay dating content actually that was not just the occasional guy talking about some like unhinged grinder hookup that he'd had. So I kind of thought maybe there is a niche in the market that hasn't been tapped into yet with this. So yeah, originally the TikToks were created to tell this my mum's friend that I was trying to sell these skincare products slash then also let me just see where I get with documenting dating online because I felt like I had nothing left to lose in terms of the London scene. So
And I think we're also thankful that you literally had nothing left to give, nothing
yeah,
left to
yeah,
lose, rather, because you're right. Nothing like that had come up on my
hmm
FYP before, and it was quite refreshing to not have the grinder hookup sort of red flaggy type
hmm
of video come up, and it
yeah,
felt really, for me, it felt really genuine, and it felt
yeah,
wholesome. It felt like
hmm
this is something that you would talk to a friend about.
yeah. I think I wanted it to be. Uh, I suppose I wanted to. I think there's an aspect of showing people how hard it is to date in London, but then I also wanted to also show an element of actually if people have reservations or scared to go on first dates, I want to try and also like give people confidence in doing it as well, and that it can be really fun and enjoyable, and it doesn't have to always be awful and sort of the clickbaity like worst date of my life, da da da. Which I think was also lovely to see. To some extent the algorithm pick up content that most of my videos are relatively positive. I haven't really had that many negative dating videos go up, and for them to still do well in some ways it's been quite a nice reminder that there is still some hope of people still do enjoy some level of positive content rather than just all being sort of negative, sort of clickbaity, rage bait stuff.
Yeah, and do you think it's that sort of positive element that people are drawn to? Because you're the viewers on your videos, you can see
Mm,
the algorithm where it picks up and where the viewer count starts increasing exponentially.
mm. Yeah, I suppose dating is a universal thing that every and yeah, virtually every human has to go through. So it's a very relatable topic, and yeah, I suppose people don't talk about it enough, and I suppose I think just having someone, I suppose, yeah, like do it in a way that's still overall positive, and I suppose almost anonymized enough that a lot of people could still relate to it. I think part of the success of the series has been, yeah, I never set out for it to be like a kind of revenge series of like calling out bad behavior or bad men. I think it was not that. It was more just to show an honest depiction of literally like a diary, I suppose. So in decades to come, I can look back and sort of look at it, um, and in some ways, it's been quite helpful for me because it's definitely clocked me at times where I've gone back and looked at a candidate and their name, and I'm like, I already have to think, I'm like, what did I actually do on that date, or who was that person? So, because I dread to think how many people I've dated in London at this point, I reckon it definitely has to be in the hundreds.
And you
Yeah,
still have hope. I love it.
I still have hope. I still believe in love. Yeah, I don't know. I just but then at the same time, I feel like this experience is definitely, I've become far more comfortable with the idea of potentially being alone, like as a life outcome, being far more at peace with that, rather than, I think, for a lot of my years in London, it felt there was almost like a desperation of like, I have to find someone because all my other friends are in relationships and I'm the odd one out, da da da. And I think, I don't know, I think almost having the TikTok channel has almost felt empowering to have something that is my own that I've created as well. Because I'm never going to be like an entrepreneur. Like that's just not who I am as a person. So I will only ever be working in a massive company as a tiny cog. So to have full ownership over something, I think has given me a level of confidence and personal sort of security that I felt far more sort of at peace and willing to sort of stand my ground and sort of not settle or accept behavior that I'm like, no, actually, I deserve better than that. So that's been, I suppose, another positive outcome of doing this has been sort of my own personal growth of sort of strength and ability to stand on my own 2 feet and actually like give or take as well. So like if it doesn't work out, I'm like, it's not the end of the world anymore. And um, you are good enough as a person on your own that you don't need someone else to like complete you, I suppose. Like someone is there to complement you, not complete you.
I love that. That needs to go on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It's giving main character energy in a way.
Yeah.
And one thing that you said was just really lovely, and I wanted to go back to was this whole sort of journey has given you perspective of it's okay to be on your own. And I can
Mm.
imagine as somebody, who's maybe watching your videos for the first time or new to your content, it's almost like, well, surely that would drive you to keep seeking somebody or to find that reassurance from somebody. And actually what it's done, from what it sounds like, is it's done the opposite in a way. It's given you that sort of, I'm okay being on my own.
Yeah, and I think absolutely. And also I think it's forced me to be far more articulate in dating, or I think because there's now an audience watching, I think previously I very much have strung things out even after I felt like it's not right because I just didn't know how to end it or like bring it up. Whereas having now, tens of thousands of people watching, I feel far more accountable of my own actions now. And I think from that, I've noticed I've become far more confident in bringing up conflict with someone that I'm dating in the sense of, hey, I've just been noticing or picking up this for a little while. I just wanted to like talk to you about it. So I feel like in some ways it's allowed me to be far more to the point in a kind way, but just far more in a, I don't want to waste anyone's time here, or just actually this is causing me a bit of anxiety, a bit of worry. Instead of just letting it fester inside me, I'm actually just going to air it with you, and like we're just going to have a grown-up conversation about it rather than not bring it up because I'm so worried if I bring it up, they'll leave me or something. So, yeah, I was speaking to a friend about it, or saying how a future candidate that hasn't appeared yet, and I had to sort of bring up sort of giving them the out, or giving them sort of the space to sort of comment on feeling like then haven't been as close recently, and then they then admitted that and yeah, this friend sort of commented, they're like, yeah, I think maybe it's just through this series that you've just probably become far more in tune with yourself and the ability to reason and be far more open about it, or just not. I suppose you could use the words like blunt or upfront, but you're probably developing far more confidence or skills to be more transparent. And I don't know whether that's because part of it is the idea of if things don't work out, it's like, well, I've still now got some really nice videos that I can then share with the world, so it doesn't feel like it's all been in vain. There's probably an element that's true in that statement. But then also, I suppose, feeling like I think your life is who you have surrounded with, and I think friends especially have shown me actually they can be far more important than uh, than a relationship in that respect, because I just think it still makes you a far more interesting person having lots of friends versus having one person and you don't have many friends because you just spend all your time with the one person. So
Yeah, I'm reminded of a quote, and I don't know where it comes from, about like you are the sum of the five people close to you, or something like that. I don't know where it's
nice.
from, but that sort of comes to me. And in a way, it sounds like, this going through this experience and chronicling your dating online, sort of, it sounds like it's changed the way you approach things in a way. Like you might not have been as forthcoming or as quickly as forthcoming in a way
Yes.
before.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely would have been, or would have just taken everything far more personally and would have internalized a lot more than I do now, which is far more, I think, probably how you should approach dating, which is, yes, there's probably always an element of like taking it personally, but I do listen to a podcast, and if you've seen it on TikTok, called Shameless, the two Australian girls in Melbourne.
Not listen to it, no.
Shameless. Okay, their tagline is for smart people who love dumb stuff. So they do like a lot of it. They mainly do pop culture stuff, which is great. But one of them on one of their podcasts talked about the let them theory, which I heard it and I was like, I really like that. So I'm trying to adopt the let them theory in my life as well and apply that to dating of, yes, I could meet someone and think they're perfect for me and we got on really well, but then for whatever reason the other person doesn't feel the same way. And I suppose instead of internalizing it and thinking I'm the issue, there's something wrong with me or I did something wrong, it's trying to get to the point of no, like don't go down that headspace and actually just let them, like if they didn't feel it was right, let them think that and just move on, because there's no point trying to dwell on it. And then it wasn't right, clearly, because otherwise they wouldn't be feeling that. So
And it's interesting how sort of this message sort of gets almost recycled over time about sort of self empowerment, and sort of self
hmm
regulation in a way. Because I remember back in the day when I used to watch Sex and the City on TV, and there was this tagline came from a book about he's just not that into you, and it was a movie
okay,
too.
yeah,
And so it reminds me of going back to that, where it's like it's okay, just like sort
yeah,
of move on. It's okay.
hmm
It's not personal.
hmm definitely,
So it's lovely how that sort of message gets, you know, recycles probably the wrong word. It just gets reintroduced in a different way.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I want to get into some of the candidates a little bit later because I have many a note. But I want to get your perspective on what dating or gay dating is like in London. What's that experience been like for you?
I think it has been it's been a massive education. I think I had a very sheltered life, you could say. Even at university, I didn't really date. I had Tinder. That was probably the only app that was still around. Like I never had Grinder. So, and being at Exeter, it was a small student population anyway, in the middle of Devon. So there wasn't really a big enough group of gay men I suppose, let's say, out willing to be on Tinder or wanting to date. So I didn't really have that much of a formative experience at uni, which was actually fine because I still had an amazing time, and that was mainly, because I was having fun with friends instead. So real dating, I suppose, didn't really happen until I moved to London in 2021. So, and I think from that, yeah, it was quite quickly getting used to, I want to say, dealing with people that have baggage or have a different set of values to you, that they think some things are appropriate that you would never think to do. So I think, yeah, I very quickly, I would say, toughened up or learned, okay, this is not for the faint-hearted, I suppose. And I think it is much more of a minefield in London than I think elsewhere, because of the choice that you have in London. But then I also think there's a wider issue of the dating apps more generally, and how it's sort of eroding our brains in terms of, you always somehow think there's someone better out there that you'll find that will like come up that you'll like. And so I suppose as really sort of the first generation, I've only ever dated online. I've never dated anyone in person, like through like an organic setting like my parents' generation had to do. So it's meant that you end up being sort of conditioned to have like a set criteria of a list of things that you think have to be ticked before you would meet someone or think, this person is for me. And I suppose the amazing thing about human nature or human connection is that an algorithm can never really truly predict in-person chemistry and who actually is you're suited to. So I've had countless dates that I've been on where on paper they've like ticked everything that I've wanted them to be, but then in person there's just been very little connection or intent or a vibe. And then I had it where I've been in social situations and just spoken to someone of someone, and not even necessarily like they don't even have even been gay, but then there's just been this like quite electric spark or just like fun flirtatious banter. But if I'd seen that person on a dating app, I would have been like, no, like swipe left kind of thing. So I think that is potentially a big issue, in that we've been conditioned by the apps to like think we want a certain thing, when actually if you were to meet people all organically, I think most people would be very surprised that the person that they probably would end up being with would be someone that they would never have agreed to sort of message on a dating app. So I think that's an issue that obviously it's not going to change anytime soon, because we're not going backwards. We're stuck with what we have. But I definitely think that is a big challenge generally for the dating community. But then challenges for gay men in London, I think, is the quantity of choice. I think there's probably, well, there's too much, but I think you can end up thinking you're spoilt for choice, and therefore you get really picky. And then I think the wider issue of the gay community of, I suppose, almost like the Peter Pan complex of, I think a lot of gay men don't really want to grow up, or they're sort of in a state of arrested development. And so I think and then you sort of add in the element of like a lot of gay men are in out of the heteronormative style relationships set up anyway. So I think a lot of men don't want to sort of start looking really until they're out of their 20s, when they sort of feel like they've had all their fun. But then I don't think they've really quite accepted or really want what they think they want in terms of a sort of settled down relationship life. So I think there's a lot of probably a lot of denial in the gay community, and I think an element of, to be honest, not selfishness, but I think I think there's a lot of people that want the whole white picket fence life, but then they don't want to give up the sort of free promiscuity lifestyle that London also offers. And that's not saying you can have both, but I think there are definitely people that won't disclose that, or like they'll say they want monogamy, but in reality, it's like I think they haven't really accepted what that looks like, and so I think that's a huge minefield for London specifically. It's I think those are sort of the main issue with dating generally, and then I would say one of the main issues with gay dating in London.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's incredibly complex.
Mm.
And in a way, like I've had that transition from trying to meet, guys organically,
Mm.
from either friends trying to set me up and then going through the whole online,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of a better word, to then sort of setting up dates consecutively, 5 dates in a week kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if, the first guy isn't your pick, then, you've got 4 more dates lined up. And in a way, you've got that freedom of choice, but almost too much freedom of choice. It's like going to the supermarket and having like 17 versions of orange juice and you just don't know which one you want.
Yeah.
So I completely hear that. And I think I was one really picky, but I was very blunt as well back in the day. Like as soon as the date was over, as I was walking back to the tube, I'd be texting, be like, really don't think this is going to work out because of this. And so I was
Wow.
very immediate. But
Okay.
back then, I feel it was interpreted as a bit rude and a bit too upfront.
Okay. Yeah.
It was like, Jesus, you've not even given it 5 minutes. You're not even on the tube to lose signal yet, and I'm saying not going to work out for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I think that's not so much the case now. I think people are more honest and more
Mm-hmm.
upfront with their expectations, whereas before it felt a bit more covert. You had to really draw it out from somebody
Yeah.
else.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about apps earlier, and I noticed that a lot of the dates you sort of match with are from Hinge.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't sponsored by Hinge unless they want to, of course. But
Yeah.
what is it about using apps like Hinge versus Tinder or Grinder or whatever else there is out there? Because I'm so far removed from it now that tends to work for you.
I feel like it's really it's not there's not much science to it. I think Tinder. I was on Tinder. I only have had Tinder, and then again, it must have been around 21 or 20 that. Sorry, it's in 2020, 2021 that a family friend, or I was with a friend with her parents or her mum, and they were basically like, "Oh no, you've got to try this new app, Hinge. That's what everyone's going towards." And I just found, ironically, I found Hinge. There was far more, I want to say, attractive people on there than Tinder, and I found Hinge to be far more professional than Tinder, and maybe because a lot more younger people were using it, so there was a lot less profiles. Like compared to Tinder, there was a lot of Tinder profiles where you look at these photos and you're like, I can tell this was taken on a digital camera in 2002 kind of thing. Whereas Hinge felt far more, I want to say, Instagrammable. Like there was just a lot more people putting their really best foot forward. I liked the idea that you had to have prompts. There was far more of like a setup of displaying your age, location, smoking, drugs, children. Like it was, I just thought it was a lot more of a neater package that I think just felt a bit more user friendly than Tinder. So I think I naturally gravitated towards Hinge, and in fact Tinder now. I think I basically got logged out. I was off it for so long, and I can't remember my password, so I have not. That's why Tinder sort of died off for me. And another honest answer is I think I've stuck with Hinge just because I still have a lot of engagement on it. So I think that's why I've never had to sort of move towards any other of the apps, because for me, Hinge, I still get enough matches or enough conversations with people that I felt like I haven't sort of got to the point where I'm like, I've sort of dried this app up. So, yeah, I mean, I've heard of other things like, there's an app now where you it's the same setup. So you match with someone, but you're not allowed to speak to them until you go on the first date. So you have to pay a deposit for your first drink, and then the app selects a location or a venue for you, and then you go. And the first time, you speak to the person you've matched with is in person. So you're not allowed to like do back and forth online for weeks like you. So that I feel like is a really interesting concept, and one that I think probably a lot of people would appreciate, because it is online dating lingo or messaging is quite laborious, and is a lot of table tennis. And I think, I saw one person refer to it is like a form of admin. Like, she sets sort of 30 minutes a week or something, and she'll just spend 30 minutes just responding to all the people on her Hinge, just to like clear out the inbox. So I suppose we have made it a form of admin, like, rather than excitement of messaging or dating. Feel like you've matched with someone. And then Grindr I find fascinating, because I have a couple of friends that have met their partners through Grindr, and I just find it astounding how they've been able to do that. Because having been a user, I again, have always, to be honest, I've always had very thankfully positive experiences with it. But it's almost one of those classic cases of anyone that I have met where I potentially felt like a spark, or like been really like enjoyed their company. It's we've either just very quickly become friends off it, or the person that I've met, they've been in like an open relationship or an open marriage, and so nothing was gonna nothing would come of it anyway. So but Hinge is, again, I am shocked and saddened, because I would 100% be willing to be a brand ambassador for Hinge. I'm waiting for them any day to contact me, because I feel like I really am, like, I'm selling Hinge, because so many people obviously say like, oh, I hate Hinge, it's awful, and I'm there in the trenches being like, I actually think it's great. Like, I'm Hinge all the way.
I think we need to get you a brand deal.
Yeah, I'm pleased. Too. Like,
Get get some paid promo content on TikTok from
Yes.
Hinge. Hinge, if you're listening, which I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I highly doubt. Who knows?
I know.
But let's get Ollie some money here.
I
At least
had
just to pay for the dates, at least.
I know.
Because
I had an Australian company email me about a brand deal with Tinder, and I was like, I'm really sorry. Like, all of my dates I meet through Hinge, not Tinder. So
and that's
yeah,
really interesting because you will say on your videos where you matched,
yeah,
how long you've been talking for,
hmm,
what the plan is. Usually, I've noticed it's a pub or it's like a
yeah,
pub drink kind of vibe.
hmm,
I want to get into later why you don't like coffee
hmm.
walks,
Coffee walk.
because I love them, but you're
Okay.
like never doing that again. And I was like, what happened
Yeah,
on this coffee walk?
yeah.
Um, and I have a list of things that I need to ask you about some of those. But so from the dates, I suppose that you've been on, are there any
Mhm.
that have sort of stuck out? Are there any that have been meaningful for you?
Yeah, of course. Are we talking since the series, or since
Yeah,
based in
since the
London? Since the
series.
series. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There have been, I think, obviously, Candidate 11 was a big one, which, if you remember, it was one we did 2 dates, and then he like called it off the day before the third date, and I was like completely brokenhearted and was on camera like crying my eyes out. That one was hard because it was one of those situations. So, like, let's say, like, so we ticked all the boxes on paper, and then in person we just got on so well, and then like had just loads in common, which I was like, "Oh, this is it. Like, I've hit the jackpot. This is great." Like, telling my mum, well, I didn't tell my mum, but you know what I mean, like telling people to buy a hat, all that kind of stuff. And then so when it just abruptly came to an end, uh, is hard because obviously they didn't give an answer at all. So you have to just accept you're not going to get the closure that you want from it. But so Candidate 11, those were like amazing 2 dates. I think, who else have we got? I mean, it's coming out later, but Candidate 19 was like amazing. So I think I tell this to people, it's really hard when you've experienced dating someone, or you've been on a date and you feel the electricity between you two. it's so you're in such a state of euphoria that actually when you go on other dates and they could be perfectly lovely and you can get on quite well, but once you've experienced that feeling, it's always in the back of your mind that if you don't have it, you're sort of like you can sort of go forward with someone, but I think you want to be in that state of complete sort of and utter, you know, excitement and like real butterflies, and you just can't quite believe your luck. Um, so you're almost chasing that adrenaline rush. So, but again, that kind of it's it's once in a blue moon. So that's when it can almost feel like a numbers game of like just trying to date as much as you can just to find that person that has that spark with you.
Hmm. And I was going to ask how you then evaluate how well a date has gone. Is it from the butterflies, from that euphoric sense, or are there other factors that sort of play into how well it's gone?
I think yes, that's obviously that's like an amazing element if you can get that. I think now I'm starting to be far more brutal with myself about commonality. So really trying to work out, do you really have a lot in common with this person? And if not, is that worth pursuing? I think definitely if there is an element of like sexual tension as well, that's always really lovely to like to feel that. And I think what else? Yeah, I think there's probably it's really hard because obviously initially, like with anything as humans, like it's mainly it can a lot be sort of physical to start with, and then you have to start moving over to like personality or emotional and sort of the wider picture. So like you do feel a little bit like you're in the animal kingdom and like you're trying to work out who's into who, and like it's such small sort of micro cues and um yeah, and I think as a British culture as well, which is why it's not really a spoiler. Well, it might be a spoiler for like viewers, but I tend to find Americans really attractive, and like my ex-boyfriend was American, and I just find Americans a lot easier to deal with because Americans can be far more upfront and slash also I find Americans far more optimistic, but also just yeah, they're a lot less subdued and reserved than I find British people are, because we are terrible with talking about our emotions, and I think we're so crippled with our British values and being polite that we really don't want to upset or offend people, and I think that is lovely, and I think that is what makes us who we are. But I think in the dating scene, then it can be hard because there's an element then of like we just don't want to have to like feel like we're being rude to someone by almost saying, actually, I'm not feeling it. And so what we end up doing is like we just like to either ghost them or just slowly like pull back and like let it die a slow death rather than just like cutting it at the root. So, and I'm sure that's a universal thing, but I think in Britain, I think it's just it's even more there because we are not particularly upfront as a society in terms of like expressing ourselves.
Yeah, and you're right. And I think in one of the videos, I think it's Candidate 15, where you had two dates, and
Mm.
it just appeared like it just fizzled out.
Yeah,
The interpretation I got was that it just sort of fizzled out, and that third date never materialized. And I think they cancelled on the day or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
And
I think I didn't record it. I don't know why I didn't record it, but there was an element I did keep it to myself. But I think it was either the first or the second date, but we didn't when we kissed. I don't know why, but there was just not. I didn't have like the fireworks,
hmm,
and I don't understand why, but I don't know, but it just didn't feel something just didn't feel right for some reason. So I had that in the back of my mind as well. But yeah, then I think communications started dying on both our parts, and then he then said, "Oh, are you still interested?" Which kind of annoyed me because I was like, "Well, you're implying in that message that I'm the only one at fault when you also have not been very texty yourself." So yeah, and like you said, then he had to reschedule because he was ill on that the first third date, and then the second third date, he then had to then go out for drinks with partners at his firm, and then said, let's reschedule again, or I said, next time we can reschedule again, and then I think I said, let's do next week, and he's like, yeah, that's great, and then I never followed up, and he never followed up. So
And that's what I really appreciate about your series. It does feel authentic because it is honest, and there is accountability on you or on the other person, the other guy, where it needs to be, and it's not just all these guys are just assholes. It's like, okay, I didn't follow up or I didn't text back, and I think that's very realistic in what actually happens.
Yeah, and I think I suppose I mean, there's probably always going to be an element of you always want to have self-preservation, but I can tell you for the next, obviously I posted on Friday about Cans at 17, and it went really well as a date, and everyone is really excited, but next week I'm going to have to record that for whatever reason, like I never arranged to go on a second date, and that's probably an element. It was probably more on me than him of not, for some reason, not wanting to go, maybe because I'd matched with someone else and was more keen on them. So it's, I think that's why when I set out on this series, I was very keen, again, for it not to be like a revenge show, because as much as I try to be like a good person with this, there are still times that I probably am not coming across great and will make decisions that would probably upset or annoy someone else on the other end. So I think, like you said, I just wanted it to be an authentic portrayal, and as much as I will try and show the warts and all, there's still an element of trying to keep it sanitized, but then also show, like I said, the reality of, for whatever reason, sometimes it just doesn't happen. And I think as long as it's only been 1 or 2 dates, I think it's okay. As long as, the other person isn't like professing their love to you and you're just leaving them on red, I think.
And I suppose, like, in keeping with that authenticity, you talked earlier about sort of that butterfly feeling, the spark. This is a conversation. This is many a conversation I've had with friends who are currently in relationships and currently dating, and I want to get your perspective on the whole spark thing. Is it something that you're looking for? Is it something that is necessary? And what do you do with it?
Yeah, I think it's really hard because I do think it plays into the trope of love at first sight, which I don't think is true. There's just as the same thing, like I don't believe in soulmates. I think there are millions of people that you're more compatible with than others, but the idea of like meeting your soulmate in the same town, in the same country, in this planet is like highly convenient. Considering we're like 8 billion, I'm like, okay, so. But yeah, the spark, and then I suppose it's hard because I suppose especially with men, but like the idea of a spark when you first meet someone, it's like, is that because there's a genuine connection, or is it lust? If we're being honest, I think it's really hard to distinguish, and a lot of times it can get like melded into one, which often is, for a lot of people, you feel like there's a spark, and then I don't know, the second date you end up going home and you have sex with each other, and then somehow it just all fizzles out. And which is why for some gay people, that like some friends, they're like astonished that I do this, but very much in dating, I try and really like date someone for as long as possible before I would like sleep with them, because I really want to try and make sure that you have enough in common or a real connection separate to all of that side that it could be sustained, like as a almost, I suppose, as a friendship, because I suppose that's what a lot of relationships are. It is, you are best friends that, because I suppose sex is something that can fade quite easily and quite quickly, and our looks will fade eventually and our bodies age, and so I think you've got to have a core of connection with the person as the person rather than the body. But then in terms of the spark, I suppose a lot of it can just be lust, but then some of it I've experienced, it is just the idea of like every time you see this person, you just light up because yeah, there is an element like you do find them like incredibly attractive, but also you love spending time with them as well. So I think it's really hard to get it right. And also then I will say, well, in my experience, I found it quite rare to find the spark or to have it. And that's not to say, I have dated people for a while where there hasn't been that immediate spark, but it can grow over time. I think as long as there is a basic level of physical interest, if you then find that you're very compatible with this person or like you have some interest that you share that excite you, I think that will breed a spark in of itself. So yeah, because I've seen it both ways. I've experienced both sides of like feeling a massive spark at the beginning, but actually it's probably all just been mainly physical. And actually, once you realise you have a lot in common, it just goes. Versus not really feeling a spark at the beginning, but still being attracted to them enough, and then actually once you work out their interests or like you get on really well, then actually it can grow from that. So
Yeah, and I think one thing I've noticed from watching your series is when you come back and you do your reflections at the end, if somehow they've mentioned they're a Swiftie, or there's some musical
yeah.
theatre connection, like
Mhm.
I'm kicking my feet watching these videos. Not to reduce all your interest to just two things, of course.
Yeah. I do have, I would say, I do have serious interests. Like I am somewhat cultured, but I do also have quite niche or nerdy interests of like Taylor Swift or musical theatre, or like I love YouTube and I love watching, like tech rumors about the new iPhone. Like can be very geeky like that. And I suppose, and I love films and TV. So, and those could be on the surface just seen as quite frivolous, like quite superficial, like interests. But then it's maybe working out actually maybe that's like, oh, that's okay. Like I shouldn't have to feel almost embarrassed because I'm not, I don't know, into doing, I don't know, triathlons every weekend.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and in a way, that's what lends to that feeling of sitting down with a friend and just being real because there is no
Yeah.
pretense. Having said that, having chronicled all these experiences on
Mm,
TikTok, do
mm,
you ever feel any pressure to portray either yourself or how the date's been in a particular way? And the reason I ask that is because you will get a lot of comments, and a lot of the comments will be like, and I've done this, so I probably colluded into it. Like, it's Friday at 5 p.m., my show is on.
yes.
Or, like, I'm hoping for a second date with candidate, whatever.
Yeah.
So, is there a certain pressure to portray something in a certain way?
I don't think so. I think I suppose most of the, yeah, in fact, none of the users really know it, but like there's quite a long delay time from when I record the date to then posting it. And I don't normally edit till the week of. So most of the time I'll record it there and then I'll leave it for like, it'll be sat there for months and then I'll come to it and start. By that time, there's been quite a long gap. So when I come to edit it, if there are things that I've said, which I'm like, I don't know, was that kind or does that need to be in there? I can cut it out because I'm like removed enough from it now. I think there's maybe an element coming up where I'm like, if I date one candidate, for a long period of time, how much people will stay interested in that? Like, will they want to see date 10 with the same candidate, or will they just be like, okay, we're a bit bored of this now because it's not something new? So that's obviously it hasn't happened yet on the channel, but it'll be interesting when it does, what happens with it. And then also the wider issue of, and it's still something I struggle with in terms of like, if or when I tell people or tell a candidate what I do. And so far, I have not told anyone. And then the only time people have known is because they found out. That hasn't been through me. So it's been that is still a tricky subject that I still don't quite know, like, the rules of or how to manage it, because it is on the face of it quite an odd thing. And I think I had it with Candidate 19, where they eventually just sort of said they found almost it was like too pressurized, knowing that they're going on a date with me and that it was all then going to be like filmed afterwards. So it's my again, I suppose I sort of started this with not really thinking the long-term plan of it. It's like it's all hanging in the balance in the sense of I don't quite know what the future holds for it, or what the best way is to manage it or deal with it in real time.
Yeah, because in a way, there's a different layer of it in that, especially
Mhm.
like, for example, with Candidate Five, who saw the video
Yeah.
of you talking about the first date being cancelled, and
Hmm.
that real timeness of it, where somebody who you potentially are going out with is watching these videos.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think from Candidate 5, I think that's when I felt, okay, there needs to be a wider gap from posting to dating, because I think there needs to be a breathing period so that it's not so much of a shock. And I think for anyone where there was a significant number of dates, so I think with like Candidate 19, I would have told him eventually when it got to his slot almost to be like, hey, just let you know, this is something that I have done. You can have a look at previous videos. Like, if you're not comfortable with this, I won't post it, but it's up to you. Because again, I think, and that was an element of why I was from the start wanted to keep it as anonymized as possible.
Have they ever commented on the video that you've posted about?
No, I think Candidate 5 was the only one that
Okay.
saw it and commented. Um, Candidate 19 has yet to, because, well, A, he knows about it prior, but obviously I haven't posted any of his yet. So
I feel like I've got an inside scoop here now.
I know you
Um,
have, yeah.
and one of the videos that really stuck out to me was Candidate 8. So, for context, you matched on Hinge, you met at a
Hmm.
pub, and
Yeah.
it was complicated because the first video I think wasn't very pleasant, but then in the second video there was you disclosed that they had a mental health condition or a mental health disorder,
Hmm.
and immediately you could see there was a different tone. There was a shift, and I thought that was, and I commented personally on that one,
Mm,
where I felt that you would handle that quite delicately because of what it
mm.
presented. And obviously, being a mental health podcast, I wonder sort of what that interaction or what that left you with.
I think it was really hard because I'd never really experienced that before in a dating context, and there was an element of like not knowing what to do, of sort of realizing, okay, yeah, this person is not well, and but they're an adult, like I have no control over their life or what they do or say. But I think, uh, and there was an element of, like you said, like still trying to keep with the authenticity. Like what I could have done is I could have re-recorded the whole thing so that actually, or even just not posted it. Like I could have re-recorded so that instead of beforehand getting ready, being like, yeah, this guy is giving rows of red flags, like he seems really arrogant. I could have just kept like really sanitized it and just said, yeah, I don't know, they seem nice. We'll see how it goes. But again, I suppose it just didn't feel genuine. Slash, there probably was an element of this is important to portray that this person was indicating this about them, but having met them, actually, I think there's a bigger picture here which involves mental health, and I suppose I felt not almost like a duty, but I was like, it probably would have had more of an impact for the audience to see me actually reflecting, be like, okay, I was wrong on this situation because it's not as clear cut as I had thought it was going into the date, um, and then sort of censoring myself, being like, actually, I'm not going to comment on really what happened on the date or what he was like, because I now think there was an element of mental health going on that doesn't necessarily excuse the behavior, but just adds a lens that I think I would feel then I was coming across as unkind to sort of rip them to shreds, because they at least had the courage to tell me on that date that they had mental health struggles. So because they had disclosed it, I then felt it would not be sort of generous of me to, for the sake of clicks or content, to sort of come back and be like, yeah, everyone, I was completely right. He was awful, and because again, it's like he probably will never see it and probably doesn't even know about it. But I just thought, I don't think I could sort of have that sit with me, knowing the truth, but still pretending for the sake of a story. So yeah, and it's still a level of complicated because he was still like from a very privileged background, but there was just an element I just felt. I think like most people will have it in their gut where you like someone's telling you stories and you're like, I just don't know if this is true. Like something feels off generally, and you're just like, okay. But then you have that added element of the mental health. You're like, okay, I'm just going to leave this. I'm going to, say my piece and just politely move on.
I'm glad you kept that in because I
Mm.
think it was important to tell,
Mm-hmm.
and it shows a real reflection of different types of people and men that people will encounter and people will date, and how nuanced that can be and how complicated that might be, not always.
Mm.
As somebody who's dated like men with mental health difficulties or other
Mm-hmm.
kinds of physical disabilities, I think it's an accurate and real depiction of what it is like,
Mm.
and how it needs that sensitive lens, as you called it,
Yeah.
to be applied, because there is so much more going on.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that stuck out to me, and maybe this is because I'm of a similar-ish age, but candidate number 9, I want to say.
Yes. Candidate 9.
So this was somebody you went on a date with who was a little bit older than you,
Mm-hmm.
and the reflection of it. So the guy in question was around 37, I think, and it was the reflection that really struck me because you were almost tearful, and something you
Mm.
said stuck at me, and I was like, I felt called out a little, but you said, I want him to find someone, and you knew it wasn't going to be you.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm going to be alone forever. But also that sensitivity of that longing of, I want them to do well, or I want
Mm.
them to be happy, and
Yeah.
knowing that's not going to be with you. I
Mm.
wonder if you can tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I suppose I'm probably a sensitive soul at heart, and I just felt, even though I had done nothing wrong, you just felt awful because I just wasn't feeling it. But they were just so lovely and so genuine, and I suppose because they just seemed like a really honest, nice man. It felt horrible to have to sort of be so harsh and blunt. Whereas if they'd just been a bit of an asshole, I wouldn't have cared. And then there was probably an element of, not the worry, but the idea of, like you say, I suppose being in any decade and still being single, but feeling like, I don't know, I just wanted him to have had a boyfriend or a husband by now, because I just feel like, oh, you just seem so lovely that you deserve someone that feels the way that you were like feeling.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, there was probably an element of deflection of thinking, I don't necessarily want to be in my mid-30s and still single if have been dating since I was, 24. So, but But yeah, it was that sort of, I don't know why. I don't know why it affected me so much, but
I mean, there is that fear for anyone, I suppose, or for
mm,
some people, where it's like, am I going to find someone? Whether you're in a gay relationship or a heterosexual, say,
mm,
relationship, am I going to be alone? If I'm going to be alone, what does that look like for me? What
mm,
does that look like in terms of, the people surrounding me and the support I have and the support
yeah,
system? So there's a systemic issue there. But I think because a lot of people will have that thought, it kind of struck, and I think it will strike and
mm,
connect with a lot of people. And then, like you said earlier, there is this sort of period for some people, if they ever choose to sort of feel that way, where they feel, okay, I'm not looking for that anymore. I'm at
mm,
peace being
hmm,
on my own, and I'm not actively looking, which is where I'm at.
yeah.
And I think that's why it sort of struck out at me in a really pleasant way, not in a. I know I felt called up, but I that was a bit dramatic.
Yeah.
Um, but you do wish for somebody at some point, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, you sort of make plans accordingly.
Mm,
But it is this. I thought it was a really sweet and tender moment, and this
yeah.
is why I think I've been connecting to your
Mm,
videos, because there are those moments where you do cry,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there isn't this polished version of you that you present. It's
Mm,
very real. And I think that's what other people are connecting to, especially reading some of the comments on the
hmm,
videos.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that's, you know, yeah, it was a little bit nerve-wracking to be like, am I really going to post me crying to like the world? But again, I was a bit like, yeah, I mean, what's to lose, really?
Does the digital footprint scare you? Because as somebody who will post podcasts, and these are in video form as well, I'm very aware that I might say something at some point, and a couple of years down the line or whenever, I'd be like, did I just say that, or did I just look that way, or does that digital footprint ever worry you?
Not really. I think if I have like my parents in my head, they probably. Sometimes I think like, oh, but one was if an employer saw this, da, 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 da. But then I've part of me thinks actually life is too short. I'm like, just fuck it. I mean, I don't care. So no, I mean, I suppose because I've grown up in the digital age, like I've seen YouTubers get cancelled for things were saying in 2010. So I suppose I'm hyper aware of censoring what you say. Slash, I suppose my content is not really. It's pretty bland, really. I'd say it's not opinionated. It's not. I don't delve into like political topics or anything like that. So it's. I would say it's inoffensive content as much as you can do it. So no, I'm not too worried about my digital footprint in that sense because again, I feel like enough people are doing it that it's not. You're not sort of. Yeah. Again, it's not 2009 where you're like starting a YouTube channel and people sort of looking at you being like, you're doing what? Like you're posting yourself online. So I think we're in full saturation of that digital landscape. So no, it doesn't affect me. It annoys me until recently. I didn't realize you could turn off the settings in TikTok that it wouldn't show your content to family or friends or contacts, which I wish I'd done from the beginning because that was something I didn't want people to see initially. It was me, like friends seeing it. So I did end up blocking loads of people when I first started because I just didn't want them. I don't know. I wanted to somehow keep it private and yet the whole world see it, but just not people that knew me, which was a harder task than I thought it would be. So um, slash an element of feeling like only once I maybe had gone to a certain level of success, then I'd feel comfortable with people seeing it because then it wouldn't look quote unquote like as an embarrassment and more like, oh wow, like fair dues to him. He's actually, So my aim was always wait till you get to 10,000 followers and then you can unblock everyone. And then if they see it, it won't, they'll be like, oh, wow, good for Ollie. So,
And then you're part of
yeah.
the creator fund anyway, so you're getting paid for it.
Yeah, getting paid whatever, like 20 pence for every month or something. Like,
Every little helps. um,
yeah.
um, so I'm wondering, like, what are the sort of best sort of bits of advice that you've been given in terms of dating?
I suppose best piece of advice: don't overthink. I don't know how true the treat them mean, keep them keen is, but there probably is an element of, for me at least anyway, because I can be quite all or nothing and quite intense. So like trying to like reserve yourself a little bit. I suppose being honest with yourself in terms of, yeah, like really just be who you are and talk about things that you are actually interested in, and like don't worry about what they might perceive or think, because I think if you try and be inauthentic, most people will pick that up and they'll be more put off by that than you saying about how, you know, you watch Titanic simulations of the ship sinking on YouTube like once a month. Like at least then if it doesn't work out, you can at least be like, well, you know, I'm still being true to myself and that's the main thing, rather than trying to be someone you're not. And then when it doesn't work out, and the person's like, yeah, I just felt like I wasn't really getting to know you, or I just couldn't work. And you're kind of like, oh, yeah, that's probably a reason, because I wasn't being totally honest. So, yeah, I think also it's really, really hard. And I'm not saying I've mastered this at all, but I think having confidence in yourself as you, and like you said, I feel like, I hate the phrase like, oh, you'll find someone when you're least expecting, when you're not looking, that's when you find. But I think there is an element of, it's like, but I do believe the idea of, if you feel sexy in something that you're wearing, that will come across regardless of like your body type or how you actually look. Like if you feel confident, other people will perceive you as feeling confident and looking confident. And I think that is true. So I do believe in that. So if you come into a date, like, I suppose, confident and sort of willing to chat and, talk about yourself, that is truth, then I think that is probably the best road to go down. And I would say to people, don't. I know it is hard, but like try and not think too much about it in terms of dating. Like it is meant to be fun. Like it's not meant to be a chore. It's not meant to be like a slog. But then I love meeting new people. I find it absolutely fascinating. Like I find networking quite fun. So I get that if you're more introverted or just shy, like it is obviously a lot harder. And I also just say, just try and get a date in as quickly as possible after matching with someone, because again, I think it's quite a British thing, but we just love the table tennis back and forth. And I've just had it before. I'm like, is anyone going to like try and make a move to see each other? So that would be my main advice in dating, is like, just once you match, yes, exchange a couple of messages, but just try and book in a date as soon as you can, because I feel like it's not until you meet someone in person, that's when you really work out if it's going to be right or not. Because you can be messaging someone for weeks online and think, I love this person, they're great, and but then you meet them, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, that's okay. I'm gonna have to reassess my mood board now.
Yeah, because in a way you've concocted this version of them in your
Hmm.
head, which doesn't
Yeah,
match the reality, and then you get the disappointment or the nuance, and it just doesn't match in a way.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I feel like I could have you on the podcast for about 3 hours and not run out of questions, but I have a couple of questions left. I
Mhm.
wanted to ask what you were hopeful for in your own dating.
What am I hopeful for? I think the aim is to find a boyfriend. That would be great. Uh, I think I'm always quite upfront with that with people as well. Like, I slightly loathe on the Hinge. You can put uh what dating you want, and the people that say figuring out my dating goals, I always find fascinating. Well, that, and then people that put short term, they're looking for a short term relationship, which again, I'm like, how does that work? Like, I'm baffled by that. Like, do you put a sell by date on when you have to end with someone? Like, um, so no, my dating goals are quite clear of, um, long term relationship basically. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's as simple as that, everyone. It doesn't need to be complicated.
Everyone slide into Ollie's DMs. But so speaking of sliding into your DMs, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on TikTok and Instagram. I'm the same handle. My handle is Oliver Robert Smith.
I'll make sure to put all of that in the description box below.
Yeah.
Ollie, I have had such a good time asking you about, the video series. I've been a fan, I suppose. I don't know what to call
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
From the
Fellow
beginning
supporter. You
stages.
have. You've been there from, yeah,
And I
the beginning.
genuinely am hoping for the day that you don't have to make these videos.
Thank you. Well, again, let's hope. We'll see. I mean, if I end up finding someone and they are fine with the content, the channel could become then like a relationship series.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, Ollie.
No, that's great. Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.